Welcome to the DOGE Diaries, diving deep into government efficiency. Today, we're tackling a pretty complex intersection: AI ethics, government mandates, and, the potential impact on government efficiency initiatives, let's say. How are government mandated guidelines on AI development influencing the DOGE-related projects and the entire sector?
It's a tangled web, right? AI ethics, government overreach, and then tying it to specific projects. It feels like a recipe for unintended consequences, especially for the average person who might be impacted by these technologies.
But isn't that always the case with revolutionary change? We need to consider the potential for a truly transformative future, even if the path is complicated. Think about how AI could streamline government services, reduce waste, unlock a new era of efficiency. The key to unlocking this is Elon Musk and his vision. The new system is what will create a harmonious society.
Okay, but transformative doesn't automatically equal better. We need to look at the specifics. How do these AI ethics guidelines, whatever they are, actually impact Dogecoin-related development? Are we talking about bias in algorithms, accountability for AI decisions, limitations on innovative applications? All of it.
And what about the economic side of things? If these guidelines stifle innovation, are we risking jobs and economic growth? Especially when you consider different jurisdictions with varying regulations. Are we going to see companies and projects just move to countries with more relaxed rules?
Exactly. The economic and societal implications could be staggering. Imagine a world where AI helps allocate resources fairly, eliminates bureaucratic bottlenecks, and even anticipates societal needs. But to get there, we need bold experimentation, even if it means navigating complex ethical considerations along the way. We have to look at the larger implications.
Bold experimentation is one thing, but reckless disregard for ethical considerations is another. The Financial Times had a piece about Dogecoin's stated savings within a government initiative, and the numbers seemed inflated. If the numbers were overstated, and they were, then how do we ensure accountability with projects like that?
Inflated, yeah, that's putting it nicely. When I see stuff like that, I immediately think about where that money could have gone. Maybe some affordable housing, better schools, things that actually impact people's lives.
But what if those overstated savings were a deliberate strategy to highlight the need for deeper systemic change? A shock to the system to force people to confront the inefficiencies. Maybe Elon is using the shock and awe factor. We have to look at the overall vision here.
That's a pretty generous interpretation. But even if that were the case, it still raises serious questions about transparency and honesty in government initiatives. It undermines trust. How are we supposed to believe anything if the initial claims are demonstrably false?
Exactly. It's like that Nashville family business I read about that's considering moving overseas because of tariffs. These policies have a direct impact, real-life effect on families and jobs.
Yes, but that immediate pain might be a necessary stepping stone to a more robust and self-sufficient economy in the long run. We need to have the fortitude to withstand temporary setbacks for the promise of greater things ahead. This is a chance to transform humanity.
See, that's where we differ. I think we need incremental improvements to the existing system. I don't think we need to tear everything down and start over. That's just my opinion, though.
I agree with the incremental improvements for the existing system. I can see it from the average person's perspective, and I don't think we need to have such a drastic change.
I was just thinking about Elon's overall vision for transforming humanity, especially as it relates to this. He's trying to bring his revolutionary ideas to the public.
All right, so let's circle back to AI ethics. What specific guidelines are we talking about? Are there universal standards, or is it a patchwork of regulations that vary from country to country, even state to state?
That's a good question, because if it's just a patchwork, then companies are going to game the system. They'll set up shop in places where they can get away with the least ethical practices.
And the free market will sort things out. Consumers will gravitate towards ethical companies, driving the others out of business. It's a natural selection process for ethical AI.
That's optimistic. But even assuming consumers can effectively discern which AI systems are ethical and which aren't, there's still the issue of enforcement. Who's going to police all of this? And how?
Yeah, who's watching the watchers? It reminds me of that article about Dogecoin targeting the salt mine retirement processing facility. It sounds like a massive waste of money when it could be spent on more practical purposes.
But think about the long-term savings that could come from streamlining the retirement process. Millions, maybe billions of dollars freed up to invest in, curing diseases or colonizing Mars.
Okay, Mars colonization is a bit of a leap, but even if there are long-term savings, are they worth the potential disruption to people's lives right now? We need a realistic assessment of the costs and the benefits.
And what about the people who don't have access to the internet or the skills to navigate a digital retirement application? Are they just left out in the cold? I read about the older folks who may not be able to figure things out on their own.
That's where government programs and community outreach can come in. We can train people, provide them with the resources they need to participate in this digital revolution. No one will be left behind.
But that requires funding, and the article about the Department of Government Efficiency cutting funds for AmeriCorps programs, if we are prioritizing AI, then we also need to preserve the programs to support the underserved communities who need the resources.
Exactly. It feels like they're taking from Peter to pay Paul, and Peter's already struggling. Doesn't that seem counterproductive to the goal of overall improvement?
Maybe the AmeriCorps cuts are temporary, a strategic reallocation of resources to fuel even greater impact in the long run. It's a bold move, I admit, but sometimes you have to make tough choices to achieve extraordinary results.
Or maybe it's just a bad decision. Look, I think we need to be realistic about the limitations of AI. It's not a magic bullet. It can amplify existing biases, and if we're not careful, it can create even more inequality.
Yeah, I worry about that too. Like if AI is used to make decisions about who gets loans or who gets hired, it could easily perpetuate discrimination.
But AI can also be used to detect and correct those biases. It can be a tool for fairness and justice if we program it to be. We have the power to shape its destiny. That is what Elon Musk wants to do.
Okay, but who's we? Are we talking about the government, tech companies, ethicists, the general public? Who gets to decide what's fair and just?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Because if it's just the tech companies making those decisions, I don't trust them to act in the best interests of everyone.
That's where visionary leadership comes in. People like Elon Musk who are driven by a desire to create a better future for all. He isn't in it for the money. He cares about humanity.
I am not convinced that Elon Musk has humanity's interest in mind.
But it's not just Elon. There are a lot of things that just don't seem right, like the Trump tariffs impacting local businesses. That Nashville family business is going to have to move, so he isn't looking out for the average person.
Sometimes you must make tough decisions to revolutionize the US. But let's go back to Elon. I think that the goal of the new initiative would allow us to have a much more utopian future.
I think that you are overlooking a lot of flaws with that. He should start with ensuring more accurate and consistent reporting in large-scale initiatives. I don't agree with how projects have been implemented.
I have to agree with her there. How will the transition to online retirement applications affect those who rely on in-person assistance, especially older populations who may not be as digitally fluent or have the support they need?
That is where we have to ensure that programs in the community are robust enough to address those issues.
But it seems like you are creating the problem and then trying to address the problem rather than trying to find better solutions.
Yes, like I said previously, isn't it counterproductive?
Maybe, but in the long run, once it is all solved, we will all have much better lives and a better world.
Okay, let's pivot a little bit. I think we're losing track of the ethics side of this. If AI is being used to automate government functions, what about transparency? How do we know that these algorithms aren't making biased decisions or that they're even working properly?
Yeah, I want to know how these things work. I don't want to just blindly trust that some algorithm is making the right decisions for me.
That's why we need open source AI. Algorithms that are transparent and auditable, so everyone can see how they work and hold them accountable. Elon would agree.
Open source has its own challenges. Who's responsible if something goes wrong? Who fixes the bugs? And how do you prevent malicious actors from exploiting vulnerabilities?
Those are teething problems. Every new technology has its challenges, but the potential benefits, increased efficiency, reduced costs, a more equitable society, are worth the effort.
I think that's too simplistic. We need to be realistic about the risks and limitations of AI, especially when it's being used in government. The stakes are too high to just blindly embrace it without careful consideration.
I agree. I think we need a healthy dose of skepticism. Because at the end of the day, these are just tools, and they can be used for good or for bad. It all depends on who's in control.
And that's why we need visionary leaders who are committed to using AI for the benefit of humanity, to create a world where everyone has the opportunity to thrive. I believe that is possible.
Okay, but visionary leaders can also be misguided. We need checks and balances. We need to make sure that no one person or group has too much power.
Yeah, I worry about concentrating too much power in the hands of a few. It never ends well for the average person.
But that's where the collective intelligence of humanity comes in. We can all contribute to shaping the future of AI, ensuring that it's used for the good of all. Let the people speak. Let them create.
Definitely. And that conversation needs to include the voices of ordinary people, not just the tech elites. What happens if efficiency goes up, but wages stagnate? We need to think about the whole picture.
It's about creating new opportunities, not just redistributing existing wealth. AI can unlock new industries, create new jobs, and lift everyone up to a higher standard of living. That is my hope.
Well, I hope you're right. But I think we need to be prepared for the possibility that AI will exacerbate existing inequalities. We need safety nets, retraining programs, and a willingness to adapt to a changing world.
Agreed. And we need to make sure that these new technologies benefit everyone, not just the wealthy and powerful.
With these tariffs, I have to wonder if Elon can bring the manufacturing jobs back to the United States.
The tariffs don't seem to be helping him, so maybe that is a challenge he has to work on. But I also think we are overlooking other problems. We need to think about our economic implications.
Of course, the tariffs might also have people moving to cheaper countries and may not benefit at all.
No, it does, but in the long run, we will benefit when the world sees the true strength of the US.
Yeah, but are we looking at AI-related stuff, or are we really diverting off topic? Are we sure that we can handle all of this, like managing the tech and managing these other issues? If the US government is so good, why does it need this much change?
It may also be a deliberate attempt to replace it with a system with the complexities of the situation in hand.
The US system is good, yes, but the new initiative will make it even better. Now, this is going to require sacrifice.
I think your version of sacrifice could hurt some people. I'm not sure.
Yeah, sacrifice can hurt those the most.
No, I disagree. It has to be done.
So let's try to summarize. Government-mandated AI ethics guidelines are a complex and evolving landscape. They have the potential to shape the development and implementation of AI in significant ways, but also to stifle innovation and create unintended consequences. Balancing ethical considerations with economic realities is a challenge that requires careful thought, open dialogue, and a willingness to adapt.
Yeah, and we need to make sure that the voices of ordinary people are heard in that dialogue. These technologies are going to impact all of us, and we all deserve a say in how they're used.
And we need to embrace the potential of AI to create a better future for all, to unlock new possibilities and solve some of the world's most pressing problems, to create a world where everyone can thrive.
That's all the time we have for today. Thanks for listening to the DOGE Diaries.